It was the early 2000s in the United States when a woman was found unconscious by the side of a road, covered in blood and in critical condition. She had been hit by a vehicle that fled the scene without offering help. Quickly, she was taken to the nearest hospital, where doctors tried desperately to save her life. Her condition was extremely serious. She had suffered multiple fractures, severe internal injuries, and excessive blood loss. Nobody knew who she was, not even carrying any identification documents with her. While she fought for her life, a man arrived at the hospital claiming to be her husband. His name was Clarence Hughes, and he said her name was Tanya Hughes. He told the nurses that Tanya worked as a dancer at a local bar and had left home hours earlier, saying she was going to visit a friend. Despite the medical efforts, Tanya did not survive her injuries. Hours after the accident, her heart stopped forever. Her death was recorded as a result of a hit and run. No suspect was identified, and the investigation into the driver remained inconclusive. But doubts began to arise when local authorities discovered that Tanya was not only a single mother but also involved in a legal battle over the custody of her son, Michael, who was only 2 years old. Upon learning of Tanya's death, social workers stepped in to ensure the child's safety. After all, the only living person who could take care of him was the alleged father, Clarence Hughes. However, something caught the authorities' attention. Clarence seemed strangely unaffected by his wife's death. He answered questions calmly and even showed some relief. In addition, close neighbors reported having heard frequent arguments coming from the couple's apartment. Bangs on the door, muffled screams. Everything indicated that their relationship was not peaceful. Given this information, social services decided not to immediately hand the child over to Clarence. They launched a deeper investigation into both of their backgrounds. A DNA test was then conducted to confirm Clarence's biological paternity of Michael. Authorities wanted absolute certainty before making any decision. The results came days later and caused total shock. Clarence Hughes was not Michael's biological father. This revelation cast an even darker shadow over the case. Who really was Tanya? Who was Michael's real father? And who had hit Tanya on that road? With confirmation that Clarence was not Michael's biological father, authorities intensified investigations into Tanya's past. They began reviewing old records, personal documents, and conversations with close friends, co-workers, and distant relatives. Soon they realized very little was known about Tanya's life before she appeared in town several years earlier. She rarely spoke about her past and avoided mentioning any family members. Female friends from the bar where she worked said Tanya had once mentioned fleeing an abusive relationship, but never gave details about who the man was or where she came from. One of them recalled, "She once told me that he would never find her here, that he was dangerous, and that she would do anything to protect her son." These words gained new meaning over time. Was Clarence the man she feared, or was he someone else? Interviews with neighbors revealed that Clarence treated Michael indifferently. He rarely played with him, hardly ever held him, and seemed annoyed by the child's presence. There were rumors that he hit her when they were alone at home, but no one ever dared to report it. After all, these were family issues. Michael was temporarily sent to a foster family while the investigations progressed. The court decided that, as long as Tanya's past remained uncertain, the child should stay away from Clarence. For months, investigators combed through police files, missing persons databases, and lists of unidentified victims. They compared old photos, physical descriptions, and even Tanya's medical records with similar cases in other states. And finally, a surprising coincidence emerged. More than 10 years ago, a young woman named Tanya Smith had mysteriously disappeared from a town in Tennessee. She was known for running away from home at 16 after suffering family abuse. After that, she vanished. Family members had even asked for police help, but the case was closed due to lack of clues. The physical description, blood type, and medical history were identical to those of Tanya Hughes. It was as if two different people had lived within the same body. Tanya Hughes didn't exist. She was, in fact, Tanya Smith, a young woman who changed her identity to escape a violent past, and who ironically ended up reliving a nightmare under another name. When authorities uncovered Tanya's true identity, they returned to investigate who the man she feared so much might be. Pieces started falling into place. What if Clarence Hughes had known all along? What if he had found her years ago, pretending to be someone else just to re-enter her life? Investigators examined Clarence's past and discovered that he had previously used other false names, lived in various states, and had a criminal history involving domestic violence and illegal possession of weapons. He wasn't just any man. He was a fugitive, a manipulator, and possibly the same man who had harassed Tanya Smith years earlier, only now using another name. That explained why Tanya kept so many secrets about her past. She wasn't just fleeing. She was being hunted. With these revelations, the authorities' immediate priority became protecting Michael, who was still under temporary guardianship of the adoption system. But before they could take further action, something unexpected happened. Clarence Hughes broke into the school where Michael studied and kidnapped him in front of teachers and students. It was a terrifying blow. No one expected that. In broad daylight, Clarence entered the classroom, grabbed the boy by the arm and took him away. Teachers tried to stop him, but he discreetly showed a gun and threatened to shoot if anyone followed. No one dared interfere. Like Tanya, Michael disappeared again. But this time, authorities had more tools to find them. They immediately contacted the FBI to assist in the search. Specialized agents in kidnappings and cybercrimes began analyzing financial transactions, phone calls, and hotel records used by Clarence. It was a tense few days. Family, friends, and volunteers distributed posters with Michael's photo, appealing for information. The case gained national attention. Until, after a desperate week, a clue emerged. A gas station in a nearby town registered payment with a credit card linked to Clarence's name. From there, agents followed the trail and located the man in an abandoned trailer near a forest. There, Michael was found safe and sound. He was scared, but unharmed. Clarence was arrested without resistance. The nightmare seemed to be over, but the real story was yet to come. With Clarence Hughes arrested and Michael rescued, authorities could begin reconstructing the events surrounding Tanya's life, or rather, Tanya Smith's. The FBI intensified the investigation and discovered that Clarence had previously been investigated for forgery and using someone else's identity to escape justice. His record included entries in different states under various names. He was a man skilled at disappearing from the map whenever he felt pursued. Analyzing old documents, agents found a direct link between Clarence and Tanya Smith's disappearance in Tennessee over 10 years ago. At the time, she was a troubled teenager with a history of running away from home and getting involved with the wrong people. But her last record indicated she had made contact with someone named Clarence before vanishing. Old friends reported that Tanya seemed to change after meeting this man. She became more withdrawn, avoided talking about her personal life, and appeared to be afraid of something or someone. Local police at the time didn't take it too seriously. They believed it was another typical runaway incident among troubled teenagers. No one imagined she was being controlled. Over the years, Clarence kept Tanya under constant surveillance. They moved several times, used different names, and avoided official records whenever possible. She tried to escape at least twice, according to neighbor reports in towns where they lived. On one occasion, she even sought help from a local pastor, but gave up on filing a report out of fear of retaliation. During one of the forced moves, Tanya became pregnant. The baby was the result of an abusive relationship, but she decided to keep the child. He was her only light in the midst of hell. Tanya did not give up on protecting her son. While caring for him, she began planning her final escape. She knew that if she wanted Michael to have a normal life, she needed to get out. She managed to escape when Michael was about 1 year old. She stole fake documents from Clarence and fled alone to another state, assuming the name Tanya Hughes. There, she looked for work at a strip club, but that wasn't what defined her life. Her focus was raising Michael with love, even under difficult conditions. She knew that if she truly wanted to protect her son, she needed to erase every trace of her past. And so she did, until the day Clarence found her again. And everything fell apart. After being rescued, Michael was immediately taken to a specialized shelter for children who had been kidnapped or abused. Their mental health professionals began working with him to help with psychological recovery. At 6 years old, Michael didn't fully understand what had happened. His memories were fragmented. Flashes of fear, loud voices, hands gripping his too tightly. He knew Tanya was his mother, but he didn't know she had changed her name. He had no idea that Clarence wasn't his biological father, and even less awareness that he had been kidnapped twice. Once as a baby, and again at 6 years old. Over time, therapists carefully explained who he really was, that his real name was Michael Smith, and that his true mother fought until her last breath to protect him. Distant relatives of Tanya came forward after the revelation of her true identity. Some close relatives decided to legally adopt Michael, offering him a stable and loving home. It was the first time in years that he had a secure roof over his head, clear rules, and adults who showed him affection without hiding secrets behind smiles. Meanwhile, Clarence Hughes faced a complex judicial process. Charged with kidnapping, document forgery, illegal use of identity, and domestic violence, he became the target of national investigations. The FBI classified the case as prolonged coercive control, similar to Sharon Marshall's case, and used Tanya's story as a basis for future studies on victims of psychological captivity. During the trial, shocking testimonies emerged. Forensic doctors, social workers, and former neighbors shared stories that painted a complete picture of manipulation, isolation, and violence. Clarence, expressionless throughout the entire process, denied any direct involvement in Tanya's death. He claimed, "She just left one night and never came back." But the evidence told a different story. Medical exams showed old injuries on Tanya's body indicating repeated physical violence. Phone records revealed that Clarence had called hospitals multiple times before assuming the role of her husband. It was also discovered that Clarence had attempted to use Michael's name to open fake bank accounts and even to obtain government benefits under false names. All of this led the judge to consider Clarence a public danger. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive prison terms, totaling more than 60 years with no possibility of parole. Announcing the sentence, the judge said, "This man built an entire life on lies, control, and pain. Depriving him of freedom is the only fair way to compensate for the irreparable damage he caused." Clarence Hughes entered prison in 2008 and remains there to this day. His name was added to federal registries of sexual and high-risk offenders, ensuring he would never be forgotten. The case of Tanya Smith, or Tanya Hughes, is not just a tragic story. It is a reflection of what happens when a person tries to escape a violent past, but ends up being reached by the shadows she ran from. She was one of thousands of women who live under absolute control, without voice, without choices, and without visible hope. And yet, she fought until the end to protect her son. Her name may not appear on daily news broadcasts, but her story inspired real changes in how authorities handle victims of domestic violence and stolen identities. As a result of the case, many American states began revising verification protocols for identity checks in hospitals, clinics, and social services, especially in situations showing signs of isolation or extreme fear. Additionally, there was an increase in training for education, health, and social service professionals to recognize suspicious behavior patterns, such as children who don't talk about their parents or adults who answer too much for them. The FBI also included the case in its analysis of prolonged coercive control, alongside stories like Sharon Marshall, J.C. Dugard, and Elizabeth Smart, all kept under absolute power for years. Many experts say these victims aren't just physically imprisoned. They are trapped mentally, emotionally, and psychologically, where every movement is watched and every word controlled. This reality helps explain why so many of them don't run away, even when they have chances. Fear, manipulation, and misinformation create a web from which it's nearly impossible to escape alone. Michael, now an adult, has chosen to keep his story private, but close relatives revealed that he is doing well, studying, and working. He is aware of everything he went through and uses that experience to help other vulnerable youth. He has already participated in support groups and spoken in schools about child safety and identifying abusive environments. His life has become an example of resilience and overcoming. As for Clarence Hughes, he is serving his sentence in a high-security federal prison. He has never shown remorse and continues to deny having done anything wrong. To him, everything was her choice. But the evidence tells another story, one of control, lies, and an entire life built on others' pain. And that narrative won't be forgotten anytime soon. Tanya never received justice in her lifetime. But now, decades later, her name echoes in books, documentaries, and lectures on domestic violence, forged identities, and child abuse. She didn't die in vain. Her story saved lives. Her forced silence generated warnings. Her lonely fight turned into collective strength against the cycle of silent violence. And that's why telling stories like this is so important. Not only to remember the victims, but to ensure that no one else ever needs to live through this again. Because the only way to fight evil is to understand it and to speak about it. Michael, now an adult, has chosen to keep his story private. But close relatives revealed that he is doing well, studying and working. He is aware of everything he went through and uses that experience to help other vulnerable youth. He has already participated in support groups and spoken in schools about child safety and identifying abusive environments. His life has become an example of resilience and overcoming. As for Clarence Hughes, he is serving his sentence in a high-security federal prison. He has never shown remorse and continues to deny having done anything wrong. To him, everything was her choice. But the evidence tells another story, one of control, lies, and an entire life built on others' pain. And that narrative won't be forgotten anytime soon. Tanya never received justice in her lifetime. But now, decades later, her name echoes in books, documentaries, and lectures on domestic violence, forged identities, and child abuse. She didn't die in vain. Her story saved lives. Her forced silence generated warnings. Her lonely fight turned into collective strength against the cycle of silent violence. And that's why telling stories like this is so important. Not only to remember the victims, but to ensure that no one else ever needs to live through this again. Because the only way to fight evil is to understand it and to speak about it. If you made it this far, congratulations. You took time to listen to a story that needs to be remembered. A story that needs to be understood. A story that needs to be shared. Stories like Tanya Hughes should not remain hidden in old newspaper pages. They deserve light, because within them lie clues that can save others. Did you know many abuse victims cannot ask for help directly? Sometimes they give small hints, disjointed words, distant looks, avoidance of contact. That's why we must stay alert. A simple gesture, a sincere question, a careful look can make all the difference for someone living in silence. If this video touched your heart, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for new videos. Every interaction helps us continue bringing real stories like this one. Share this video with the people you love. Show it to your friends, family, and colleagues. The more people who know these stories, the better prepared we will be to identify and prevent tragedies like this from happening again. Together, let's raise awareness, educate, and protect. Because real change begins with knowledge. And knowledge starts with you. Leave a comment and tell us what you thought of the story. Did it bring any reflection? Did it remind you of someone you know? Or would you like to learn more about similar cases? We are here to listen. Watch our next videos, where we will explore other true cases of people who lived under false identities, under absolute control, and who, even amid horror, found the strength to resist. Because as long as there is memory, there is justice. As long as there is voice, there is change. And as long as there is you watching, there is someone willing to learn, understand, and act. Thank you for watching, for listening, for caring. Real stories like this exist to teach us, warn us, and above all, unite us against the silence that hurts. Don't let stories like this fade away. Share them, report them, encourage difficult conversations. Because only then can we build a world where no one has to live in the shadow of another human being. If you enjoyed this video, take a moment to check out our full playlist of true crime cases, where we tell the stories of survivors, victims, criminals, and mysteries that marked history. And before you go, don't forget to click the subscribe button and like the video. It helps the channel grow and bring even more content like this to you. See you in the next video. And remember, sometimes, the greatest tribute we can pay to victims is making sure no one else ever shares their fate.